Revealed. My son was cleaning bathrooms. What happened next? Transformed everything in 30 days. Jake stood staring into the cracked mirror, adjusting the collar of his cleaning uniform for the third time. The soft fabric felt foreign on his skin, a reminder of the growing chasm between the life he wanted and the one he was entrenched in. At just 18, he had dreams of engineering, of designing bridges and buildings. But here he was, scrubbing toilets in the local community center. Behind him, the sounds of laughter echoed from the gymnasium, masking the shame he felt slip over him like a heavy blanket. How could kids he grew up with throw parties and attend college tours while he was stuck here? Doubt clawed at his insides, a relentless voice whispering that he was lesser, just a bathroom cleaner. The smile that used to come easily slid away as he seen familiar faces through the hallway. What did it mean to work for his family? Was he really helping anyone? The steady rhythm of his father's footsteps at home felt like warmth, but every dollar earned felt somehow like a chain that bound him to mediocrity. Couldn't he aspire for more? Before he could spiral further, a rumbling storm overhead shattered the moment's stillness. Wind howled like a banshee, and rain lashed against the roof, punctuating his unease. It wasn't just bad weather. It felt like an omen. When the emergency sirens blared, panic raced through him. He knew he shouldn't be afraid of the storm. Often, storms lead to new beginnings, right? But a storm meant chaos, unpredictability. Jake barely had time to register the ominous shift when everything exploded. A tornado tore through, ripping past windows and downing ceiling tiles. Fleeing residents dashed for safety, and the air filled with screams and confusion. In that moment, he stood frozen, heart racing, muscles tense, staring at the chaos unfolding. He was paralyzed by the sheer absurdity of it all. Him, standing alone and powerless in his cleaning uniform while others took charge. Amid the tumult, he spotted his father rushing into the center, fists clenched and jaw set, ready to battle the storm in ways only he knew how. He rolled up his sleeves and jumped in with others, fighting against the wreckage. Jake watched, emotion tightening around his throat. There was a presence in his father, a determined force that reshaped his perception of hard work. It wasn't about the uniform or the dented pride. It was about the spirit of those laboring together to restore what had been torn apart. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days rolled on, and despite the storm's devastation, hope sparked within the ashes. Inspired by the resilient spirit of his father, Jake sketched plans for renovations to the community center, envisioning a space where not just kids but entire families could meet, share experiences, and feel a sense of belonging. Love poured into the blueprints, layers of desire and ambition woven into every line and curve. But the excitement was soon overshadowed by a looming threat. An ambitious developer had decided the location was perfect for a high-end complex. Jake's dreams collided with reality, a sharp pain in his chest. How could he fight this? The very notion felt laughable. A bathroom cleaner versus a well-connected businessman. The pressure mounted. Fears danced around his mind, telling him he was out of his league and dwindling in ability. The possibilities crumbled like dry leaves caught in another storm, yet he couldn't ignore the urge to protect what felt like home. The emotional struggle took its toll as thoughts swirled, grasping at his insecurities. Who would ever care what he thought? He felt the weight of his father's legacy pressing down, a reminder of the values he had imbibed. Each stir of determination battled with crippling doubt. This was more than just a job. It was about survival, belonging, something that resonated deep within him. What would he do if he let fear win? Jake stood at a precipice, wrestling with his thoughts, heart hammering, knowing the next 30 days would stretch him beyond the limits he's ever endured. The storm had passed, but a new storm brewed within, one that could either rebuild or destroy everything he cherished. The sun broke through the clouds the next morning, illuminating the battered community center. Jake felt the warmth on his skin, yet a chill raced down his spine at the thought of what lay ahead. He stood on the uneven pavement outside, eyes focused on the building he'd envisioned transforming, a space that had been both a refuge and a battleground, a realm where he could display not just what he was capable of, but the legacy his father had set in motion. He took a deep breath, drawing in the vivid scent of wet earth mixed with remnants of the storm. Today, a small part of him would enter the world of battle. Armed with a notepad filled with sketches and an adrenaline-laden dream to protect this space, he resolved to act. His father had taught him that inaction only breeds regret. Jake walked to his first destination, the local engineering firm, a place he had often admired from afar. As he approached, uncertainty twisted within him. What if they laughed at his proposal? What if they dismissed him as just a bathroom cleaner? Shaking off the self-doubt, he straightened his back and pressed through the door. The buzz of conversation hit him like a wave. Adults in tailored suits hurried past him as he stood in the lobby, feeling more out of place than ever before. After a few moments, he mustered the courage to approach the receptionist, conveying his intent to see the lead architect. After what felt like an eternity, she finally buzzed him through. In the architect's office, walls were adorned with impressive structures and blueprints that spoke of lives built by careful hands. The architect, a middle-aged man with graying hair and sharp eyes, welcomed him with a bemused smile. "Got something to share with us, do you?" His casual tone felt almost dismissive. Jake cleared his throat, elbow deep in the mess of his emotions. "I'm here to talk about the community center. I have some ideas for renovations." For a split second, he could see the architect's interest peaked before it promptly faded, a subtle reminder of Jake's perceived place in the hierarchy of ambition. "Why would we invest in a community center?" the architect asked, voice tinged with condescension. "That's not really our portfolio. You understand, right?" The dismissiveness ignited something within Jake. The architect was looking at the situation as a project, purely from a business angle. But Jake saw the human faces behind his plans, the lives that could prosper. "Because it matters," he replied, the words spilling out before he could second-guess them. "That place is vital to so many people. It could be more than a structure. It could be a community hub that sparks opportunities." His heart raced as he spoke. He wasn't just defending the building, he was defending his dreams, his future, and that legacy of resolve his father embodied. The architect raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite himself. "Go on." Jake explained his vision of a multi-purpose space, articulated through intricate detail as if crafting a bridge between aspirations and possibility. Words flowed, igniting a light in his chest as he fought to draw the architect into his reinvention of reality. As Jake concluded, he scanned the architect's face for a hint of approval, but instead met mild skepticism. "You certainly have passion, but passion doesn't pay the bills." A chill ran through Jake. How often had he been told passion is not enough? But this was different. This was personal. He had something to lose, and that urgency propelled him forward. "Perhaps," he began, his voice steadier than he felt, "but passion can move mountains. I have a chance to turn that passion into a proposal that could interest investors. If I'm going to fight for this, I need your guidance." In that moment, a shift occurred. The architect assessed him with renewed scrutiny. Perhaps this kid was more than he seemed. Perhaps he wasn't just a bathroom cleaner. The conversation closed on shaky grounds. But Jake left feeling lighter, revitalized. For the first time, he began to see himself as not just a cleaner, but a contender. Little did he know that the toughest battles in this journey awaited him, and that aligning his aspirations with an established industry would bring forth unforeseen challenges. But now he was ready, fortified with a flicker of hope Jake turned his thoughts to the developer, whose interest loomed larger by the day. There would come a moment of confrontation. And if there was one certainty amidst the turmoil, it was this. The time had come for him to face his fears and unleash his full potential. Jake spent the next few days consumed with thoughts of the architect's office. Each morning, as he stood before the mirror, he practiced articulating his vision. He worked tirelessly, sketching out plans that transformed in his mind like living entities, shaped not only by lines and measurements, but by the human experiences they could hold. With each passing hour, the seed of his proposal sprouted into a more defined concept. He studied architecture and design principles, immersing himself in tutorials and expert discussions online. Information flooded his senses, intertwining with his dreams of a vibrant community space. He felt himself evolving, stepping away from the limitations he'd felt for years. But the specter of vulnerability hovered near, reminding him of the architect's skepticism. He battled ingrained self-doubt as he navigated information that often felt impenetrable. Could he really carve a place for himself in a world defined by expertise? The music of clattering keyboards echoed through the library, amplifying his desperation. He needed to prove himself, if not to the architect, then to himself. Seeking guidance, he reached out to a local community leader, Sophia, a woman whose unwavering spirit had inspired many. She responded warmly, inviting Jake to meet her at a coffee shop he had frequented, a place punctuated by laughter and heartfelt conversations. Seeing her warm demeanor quelled some of his worries. "Tell me about your vision," she encouraged, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. As he spoke, her seamless encouragement ignited his passion. He spoke of transformation, his dreams spilling forth like water from a cracked dam. But moments later, a heavy pause settled between them as her laughter faded into contemplation. "Jake, it's beautiful," she finally said. "But you need to craft a solid plan. It requires money, commitment, and more partnerships than you can imagine." Her realism was a stark contrast to the daydreams he held so dear. It was a harsh reminder of the obstacles he faced, each one steeped in the insulating layers of bureaucracy and indifference. His chest tightened as her words settled in. "Funding? Partnerships?" "I know it won't be easy," he replied, though doubt crept in around the edges. "But just because it's hard doesn't mean it can't happen." Sophia nodded, as if weighing his determination. "I believe you, Jake. Just remember, being a dreamer is admirable, but don't forget to also be a planner." Leaving the cafe, Jake felt a duality. He was invigorated by her belief, but crushed by the reality check. If he had thought the architect's indifference was a challenge, he now understood that the path would be riddled with obstacles, far beyond mere skepticism. He forced himself to compartmentalize, first the planning, then the execution. He immersed himself in creating a detailed proposal, scrupulously mapping out costs, potential revenue streams from events, and benefits to the community. Days morphed into late nights as he refined each aspect, pouring his heart into a presentation that felt both like a weapon and a shield. Each PowerPoint slide became a piece of himself, laid bare. Every line represented a bridge to the future he craved. On the verge of submitting the proposal, another emotion struck him: fear. The kind that tangles with ambition like a coiled serpent. If failure was a possibility, his heart trembled at the prospect of its sharp bite. What if they rejected him? What if this dream he'd nurtured turned out to be another illusion? Suddenly, that relentless urgency to act washed over him again. He had to confront this fear head-on, even if it threatened to drown him. Arming himself with a polished presentation, he made an appointment with the architect once again, ready to face the potential rejection. The chamber in his chest filled with a mix of hope and dread. Could he break through that wall of skepticism, not just in the architect's eyes, but in his own heart? The moment loomed closer. He stood on the threshold of vulnerability, prepared to flip the coin that could change everything. But what he didn't know was that outside forces were already conspiring against him, and the real challenge, the one not hinted at by sketches and dreams, was about to reveal itself. Jake arrived at the architect's office, the weight of his meticulously crafted proposal heavy in his hands. The glass doors loomed large, a barrier to a world that both thrilled and terrified him. He took a deep breath, attempting to quell the tumult of doubts swirling in his mind. What if his vision crumbled under the architect's dispassionate gaze? What if, despite his efforts, he was still seen as an amateur, inching toward a dream beyond his grasp? As he stepped inside, the cool air greeted him like a whisper of reassurance. The stark, minimalist design of the office, with its polished surfaces and sharp edges, felt almost intimidating. Yet, it also represented his aspirations, a symbol of what he was fighting for. Jake was ushered into the meeting room. The architect sat behind a sleek table, a professional mien settling over him like a perfectly tailored suit. Jake's heart raced as he placed the proposal on the table, his hands momentarily shaking before he steadied himself. "Thank you for coming in again, Jake," the architect said, his tone even, his eyes betraying little. "Let's see what you've got." Jake's voice seemed to echo in the silence as he began his presentation. He spoke with a fervor that surprised him, weaving together visions of open spaces where creativity flourished, where people gathered to share ideas and experiences. The more he spoke, the more he felt the tension dissipating, replaced by a raw passion for his concept. But as he progressed, he noticed the architect's expression shifting. The man leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, interrupting Jake mid-sentence. "This is a noble vision, but do you understand the scope of what you're proposing? Large projects require considerable funding and community engagement." Jake swallowed hard, his hope faltering. "I know it's ambitious, but I've researched potential revenue streams and community interests. I believe there's potential beyond simply constructing a building. It can be a real hub for activity." "Potential is one thing," the architect replied, his voice low. "Reality is another. You're talking about those who will invest their time and resources. Have you secured any partnerships or discussions with potential sponsors?" As the architect fired question after question, Jake felt the stakes rising like a tide threatening to pull him under. He hadn't anticipated every aspect. He had been too consumed by passion to think of practicalities. Panic surged as he realized he hadn't built the necessary groundwork before diving into implementation. Time slipped away. He completed his presentation, but the architect's nodding head didn't reassure him. It felt more like a dismissal of his dreams. "You need to align your dreams with a pragmatic plan," he advised, his tone softer now, suggesting a moment of candor. "Dreaming is important, but haven't you heard the saying, 'Don't put the cart before the horse'?" As he turned to leave, those words echoed loudly in Jake's mind. Outside, the air felt electric with possibility and uncertainty at once. Did he want to be just a dreamer, or was he willing to become someone who made dreams a reality? The drive home became a cacophony of self-reflection. Had he underestimated the requirements of building something meaningful? The architect's warning struck a chord that echoed through Jake's thoughts. This wasn't just about an idea, it was about strategy, negotiation, and unwavering tenacity. In the following days, Jake immersed himself in the world of networking. He attended seminars and reached out to local business networks, seeking out potential allies and mentors. Each conversation twisted his perception of the project, unveiling layers he hadn't considered. He learned to navigate the precarious waters of persuasion, devising pitches that were grounded in data as much as they were in inspiration. Yet with every new contact came a flurry of rejections. The stakes were becoming ever higher, and Jake felt the pressure mustering, threats of self-doubt beginning to creep back in. Was there truly a space in this field for someone like him? Jake faced a decision. Either retreat into the comfort of dreaming or push forth into the often inhospitable terrain of reality. Thoughts collided as he contemplated his choices. His heart raced as he imagined forging forward. and then a name rose to the forefront of his mind. Sophia. Perhaps it was time to partner with another passionate soul who saw the potential he envisioned, someone who could galvanize his efforts in the face of adversity. He thought about how she had encouraged him to combine dreaming with planning. The moment felt ripe. He had to reach out for her support. Jake firmly grasped his phone, resolved to rekindle that connection. Despite the anxiety bubbling within, he felt a surge of determination surge through him. "Jake, it's beautiful." He recalled Sophia's words, but now he understood. "But you need to craft a solid plan." His fingers paused over the screen. He could sense the walls closing in as fear knocked at his door again, urging him to hesitate, to reconsider. Would he face this moment with the open heart he had cultivated, or let fear dictate his next move? As he prepared to dial, a sudden notification caught his eye. A headline flashed across his screen about a community funding pitch competition. Time would slip away from him. Would this be the opportunity he needed to prove that dreams could manifest into something tangible? In that moment, he realized it was no longer just about submitting a proposal. It was about embracing the entire journey, both the struggles and triumphs alike. And with that lingering thought, Jake took a deep breath, ready to push against the tides of doubt and desperation. The call to action resonated. He pressed dial, a sound echoing in the silence, confident but uncertain, poised on the edge of his own dreams set against the vast unknown. The phone rang, its sharp tone cutting through the tension in Jake's chest. He felt every second stretch, each ring a reminder of the opportunity slipping away. Finally, on the other end, a familiar voice answered. "Jake, it's been a while. What's up?" "Sophia, I need your help," he admitted, feeling both vulnerable and resolute. "I've got a project I want to bring to life, but I realize I can't do it alone anymore. I need someone who can help strategize and ensure I don't lose sight of the big picture." A pause followed, and Jake could almost hear her considering his words. "What kind of project are we talking about?" The excitement bubbled up in him. "It's about creating community spaces. I want to design a hub for creativity where people can gather, share ideas, and innovate. But it's not just a dream. I need to make this practical. I've learned that there's a lot of groundwork to cover." Jake heard her laughter, a sound that grounded him. "You always did have big dreams, but you know how to back it up now, don't you?" He nodded, though she couldn't see him. "Yes, but I'm still figuring out the details. I just found out about a pitch competition that I want to enter, and I need a solid plan to present. Will you help?" "Count me in," she said, her enthusiasm evident. "Let's meet tomorrow to brainstorm." With that single confirmation, a weight lifted off his shoulders. A shift occurred within him, a sensation of crossing a threshold. He was no longer simply reacting to challenges. He was intentionally seeking solutions. The next day, vibrant sunlight streamed through the cafe windows as they sat across from each other. Jake shared his proposal, articulating each idea with clarity and passion. As Sophia listened, her fingers danced over a notepad, jotting down notes and questions. "What you're envisioning sounds powerful, Jake, but we need to make sure it's not just ambitious, but also grounded. Let's talk about who your potential stakeholders might be. We'll need their support from the beginning," she suggested. Jake felt energized, eager to delve into every aspect of his plans. They brainstormed potential partnerships with local businesses and organizations that could see value in investing, breaking down the massive idea into manageable components. But the exhaustion set in too. They spent hours analyzing, tearing apart and rebuilding ideas. But there remained a lingering fear that perhaps he was still missing something crucial. "You seem anxious," Sophia noted as she glanced at his furrowed brow. "What's holding you back?" Her question struck deep. "I just don't want to fall short again. I know how quickly things can derail if I don't have everything mapped out, but I also know that every great project starts small. I guess I'm struggling to balance that." Sophia smiled softly. "You've come a long way, Jake. Let's take this step by step. Remember, it's okay to not have every answer right now. It's a process." Her reassurance settled over him, a soothing balm against the incessant self-doubt. In that moment, Jake realized that he was learning to embrace the uncertainty rather than succumb to it. The next weeks morphed into a whirlwind of planning, calls, meetings, and endlessly refining ideas. Jake's network grew, reaching beyond what he had initially thought possible. Each connection he fostered reinforced his resolve. He learned to pitch not just an idea, but a vision that illustrated how his project could benefit everyone involved. As the competition day approached, Jake felt the weight of expectations again, but he now welcomed it. He understood that the stakes were high, perhaps even too high, but this was not merely about winning, it was about self-discovery, about proving to himself that he could face the challenges of the world head-on. The evening prior to the pitch, he sat at his kitchen table, notes sprawled before him. A whirlwind of thoughts invaded, reflections on the fears he had confronted and the strategies he had built. What if he hadn't reached out? What if he diluted his aspirations out of fear? This was his moment, one that would finally shape his narrative beyond mere ambition. He shut his eyes, taking a slow, steady breath, envisioning himself calmly delivering his pitch. Challenges were not obstacles, he reminded himself. They were invitations for growth. Suddenly, the phone vibrated on the table. It was a message from Sophia, reminding him to trust in his preparation. In that small act of support, fear morphed into fuel, reinforcing his belief that he was no longer alone in this journey. As he drifted into sleep that night, Jake felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was it, the beginning of manifesting his dreams into realities. The clock was ticking, and tomorrow he would step into the arena. But as he prepared for the big day, a nagging question loomed. Had he truly prepared enough? The moment of confrontation approached, and he knew it would either make or break him. Would conviction carry him past the threshold, or would he stumble under the weight of expectation? The morning light filtered through the window as Jake rubbed his eyes, the weight of yesterday's thoughts still looming overhead. He forced himself upright, pushing away the remnants of anxiety from last night. Today was the day. The prospect of presenting his vision both exhilarated and terrified him. In the kitchen, as he prepared coffee, images flickered in his mind, scenarios where everything might unravel in an instant. He could see the judge's expressions, skepticism, boredom, perhaps even disdain. A lump formed in his throat at the thought. But Jake clenched his jaw, recalling Sophia's words. Embracing uncertainty was his only way forward. The drive to the competition venue felt longer than it should have. Every turn seemed to echo the doubt that nagged at him. Yet, with each passing moment, there was also a growing sense of purpose. He had crafted a plan, a blueprint to turn a dream into something tangible. He was prepared. He could face any outburst of criticism if he stood firm in his conviction. Upon arrival, the atmosphere buzzed with eager anticipation. Motivated individuals filled the halls, each one alive with their own ambitions. As he navigated the crowd, Jake felt a twinge of camaraderie. Everyone had stories to tell and aspirations waiting to unfold. He spotted Sophia near the registration desk, her supportive smile instantly calming his nerves. They had spent weeks building this vision together. Her unwavering belief in him had set the tone for his journey. "You ready for this?" she asked, her tone light yet underscored by sincerity. "More than ever," Jake responded, trying to channel his excitement rather than let the fear overwhelm him. In the waiting area, he reviewed his notes, each bullet point a reminder of the groundwork they had laid. With Sophia by his side, he could articulate his ideas clearly and confidently. But as he rehearsed, doubts intermittently crept in. Would they find value in what he proposed? How could he convince them to invest not just money, but belief? The schedule announced it was Jake's turn. His heart rate surged as he made his way towards the stage, the spotlight blinding yet inviting. He took a breath, shoulders back, chin up, all strategies he'd practiced playing in his mind. As he began to speak, he saw a diverse audience, each face reflecting a myriad of responses. Some were engaged, others seemed distracted. His throat tightened, but he pressed on. He navigated through each point with authentic fervor, laying bare not just the project's structure but the heart behind it, logic grounded in passion. Midway through, he noticed a pair of judges whispering to one another, their expressions unreadable. Rather than let that derail him, Jake focused on articulating the benefits of the community hub, not only for himself, but for those who would use it. The vision expanded beyond just him. It became a tapestry of possibilities. As he reached the conclusion, adrenaline coursed through him. This isn't just a project, it's a call for transformation, a chance for us to innovate together within our community. The room fell silent, and a moment of unbearable tension settled as he looked out at the judges. Then came the questions, not as critical barbs, but as inquiries rooted in genuine curiosity. Jake found himself answering confidently, drawing upon the research and insights he'd gathered. A rising sense of accomplishment thrummed through him, the tightness in his chest loosening its grip. What if this was not about winning or losing, but about being seen and heard, embracing his journey irrespective of the outcome? Finally, he stepped away, almost floating off the stage. He caught Sophia's eye in the audience, her smile radiating encouragement. All the work they had put in felt worthwhile. He had faced his fears head-on, emerging with newfound confidence. Backstage, while waiting for results, Jake's mind rushed with possibilities. Had he reached the judges? There was a further limelight awaiting, the chance to reshape so many lives through his ideas. Yet, buried within that exhilaration was a flicker of doubt. What if he had misjudged the vision he poured himself into? Were there unforeseen detractors lying in wait, ready to strike? As the announcer stepped up for the results, Jake held his breath. The moment of truth promised to bring clarity, yet it loomed heavy with uncertainty. Would all he'd worked for stand firm, or were the cracks in his plan finally poised to fracture? The weight of silence hung thick in the air, pressing against Jake as the announcer began to call out names. Each syllable seemed to stretch into an eternity, amplifying the anxious thrum in his chest. Sweat dotted his brow, the cool backstage lights contrasting the storm brewing within him. He needed to breathe. "Jake Thompson," the announcer finally intoned, and his heart plummeted. Hadn't he just clung to the edge of triumph? Now it felt like he tiptoed on the precipice of failure. Yet he stepped forward, mechanically, almost detached from his body. The judges' expressions were inscrutable. They had watched him lay bare his ambition only moments ago. Now, seeing them bathed in a dim glow felt surreal. Questions tumbled through his mind, assaulting his hard-earned confidence. Were they still engaged? Were doubts etched in their furrowed brows? The lead judge cleared his throat, the sound reverberating through Jake's temporal lobe like a judge's gavel. "Thank you for your presentation, Jake. We have some feedback." His heart racing, Jake readied himself for what felt like an impending storm. This was the moment his resolve would either dissolve or solidify. The intention behind the judge's gaze held sway over Jake's future. "The breadth of your vision was unexpected," the judge continued, thoughtfully weighing each word like gold. "But let me ask, where do you envision this community hub in 3 years? What specific metrics do you have in mind to measure success?" Jake's mind raced. He had anticipated questions about logistics, but not about proving long-term viability. This was more profound, a probing into the core of his beliefs. Swallowing hard, he gathered his thoughts. The sheer beauty of the hub lies in its adaptability. My 5-year roadmap includes user engagement metrics, community surveys, and financial sustainability through local partnerships. Each phase is designed to cultivate growth not just in numbers, but in lives. As the words poured from him, building momentum, Jake felt a shift. The inherent belief in his mission surged within him like fire igniting a flame. The judges leaned in, their expressions becoming more animated, revealing a spark of intrigue that had eluded him moments prior. Before long, he had managed to earn a respectful nod from the lead judge, who jotted down notes furiously. But as soon as that flicker of momentum sparked hope, doubts returned. He recalled when he was initially inspired to create this project. Was his vision strong enough to overcome resistance? What if it struggled under real-world challenges? His thoughts drifted back to sunlight streaming through their cozy kitchen when he and Sophia first sketched this idea, fleshing out their aspirations over steaming cups of coffee. Would he let those plans slip through his fingers? Jake straightened his posture. In 3 years, we won't just be measuring success in numbers. We'll be celebrating stories, too. Stories of lives impacted, talents honed, and community connections fortified. This isn't just a venture, it's a movement. The room buzzed with murmurs, intrigued murmurs. He could see it on their faces, their intrigue growing, igniting hope for him where fear once reigned. But deep down, a gnawing insecurity lingered. What if their curiosity turned quickly into scrutiny? As Jake stepped back from the judges, a tingly rush of exhilaration laced with foreboding flooded his veins. Had he just won their favor, or had he unknowingly stepped into the crosshairs of skepticism and potentially ruthless feedback? Waiting for the final decisions would not be easy. It was a limbo filled with tension. But among the uncertainty, one thing became markedly clear. This wasn't merely about financial backing or accolades. It was about an unwavering commitment to manifesting his dream. A dream that had taken root in the warmth of shared vision. A dream worth fighting for. As the announcer prepared to wrap up and the anticipation of results neared its crescendo, he recalled Sophia's words again. Embrace uncertainty. But what lay ahead? Jake clenched his fists, ready to face whatever was about to unfold. The moment of truth was upon him, and deep within, he sensed this was not just about winning. His growth was at stake, including facing his hidden vulnerabilities. Had he been truly honest with himself? With the judges? With Sophia? With the looming results about to fracture or solidify everything he had worked for, the silence was deafening. Yet it stirred something within him, an urgency to unearth his deepest fears. The journey had only just begun. The judge's murmurs subsided as the announcer prepared to deliver the results, each second elongating Jake's tension until he could almost hear his heartbeat echoing against the walls. The spotlight felt scorching now, illuminating the sweat pooling in the small of his back. Yet it wasn't just the stage's heat he was grappling with. It was the nagging fear of inevitable failure that wound tighter around his ribcage. His mind raced to Sophia again, her laugh when she'd had too much coffee, the way her eyes crinkled when she talked about dreams, their dreams. Dreaming had always felt safe, but now, with the possibility of public rejection looming, it felt like a risk more reckless than he had ever thought possible. Had their years of aspiration meant anything if he faltered now? Jake Thompson, the announcer called once more, pulling Jake from his spiraling thoughts. With a single breath, he focused, redirecting the tempest of anxiety coiling in his gut. Your project has been selected to proceed to the next phase, the lead judge finally stated, and the wave of relief that washed over Jake nearly knocked him backward. Flashes of joy and disbelief erupted in the room, but beneath the surface, uncertainty still throbbed like a wound that would not fully heal. This wasn't simply validation. It was an invitation to scrutinize, to deliver. He took a moment to allow the shifting tides within him to settle before seeking out the judges again. Thank you, he replied, the sincerity threading through his voice, but the cheers of acceptance masked his inner turmoil. Moments later, the judges offered encouraging words and imparted practical advice, opening a wellspring of critical perspective that Jake hadn't fully anticipated. It was exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. As they outlined what success would demand of him, his chest tightened, a weight born from the realization that growth beckoned him to step beyond his comfort zone. Prepare for feedback sessions and embrace them, the lead judge urged. This is where the real transformation occurs. Despite the joy of advancement, he felt the electric hum of fear wrap around his heart once more. What if he wasn't equipped to handle the feedback? What if their critiques stripped him of his belief in his own vision? As he stepped off the stage, an unexpected vitality coursed through him alongside despair. With each forward step, he could feel hidden talents bubbling up. Maybe he was instinctively skilled at refining his ideas, or perhaps he had the acuity to sift through feedback without taking it as personal failure. In this whirling fog of uncertainty, he would need to cultivate resilience, discover the capacity to grow through adversity, emerge more profound and ready to challenge himself further. The next few days morphed into a chaotic blend of excitement and chaos. Armed with the positive feedback, he dove headlong into a rigorous cycle of meetings. He asked tough questions of himself. What did he truly want from this project? What were the real stories he wished to tell? And what challenges did he face along the way? Jake poured into research, grappling with metrics and data to underpin his artistic vision. Despite the grind, he felt empowered, discovering insights that hadn't crossed his mind initially. He realized he possessed the ability to connect dots in ways that birthed innovation, where he once felt limited. But shadows lingered. Doubts, whispering remnants of fear, returned, reminding him of pivotal moments. Presenting in school, finding his footing in the job market. Each time feeling like he was stumbling through a fog where others advanced without hesitation. This endeavor carried more weight than any project before. It was laden with his identity, the very essence of who he was beginning to question. He sat down one night with a notepad, the smell of fresh ink lingering in the air. Could he ground his ambition not just in practicality, but in genuine emotion? Looking at his scattered notes of dreams, failed attempts, and raw emotions, he penned a goal. Create vivid narratives that existed beyond metrics, stories that would forge connections, elevate experiences, and express community through personal journeys. As he leaned back, a pulse of determination ignited in him. This was his chance to embrace every lesson learned, every setback endured. It struck him. Transforming wasn't just about external success, but a deeper recalibration within. And just then, a sharp knock interrupted his reverie. He opened the door, heart racing, to find Sophia there, eyes wide with curiosity. "Have you started considering how your project impacts you personally?" she asked, stepping into the storm of his thoughts. Jake's heart skipped. This was the conversation he had been dreading yet needed most. He hesitated for a moment, considering everything bubbling beneath the surface, the fears, hopes, and newfound belief. He took a deep breath, the urgency rising to a keen edge. "I think I may have discovered how far I'm willing to go to achieve this dream. But—" Sophia waited keenly, knowing this was more than just a project. "But what?" His gaze shifted toward his papers, each word heavy with anticipation. This was more than professional growth. It was a crossroads of his existence. Would he be ready to confront the truths he had unearthed? The weight of uncertainty loomed once more, but so did the potential for transformation. What new revelations awaited him in the depths of vulnerability he had just begun to explore? Jake hesitated, the crumpled pages of his vision clutched tightly in his hand. Sophia's presence seemed to magnify every uncertainty racing through him. The world outside faded, becoming irrelevant against the impending moment of confrontation within himself. "I'm terrified that if I dig too deeply, I might not like what I find. What if the truths I uncover lead me to admit I'm not good enough?" Where had that honesty come from? Was this the raw vulnerability that would shape his next steps? Sophia's expression softened, as if she could see the cracks he carefully concealed. What if confronting that fear opens doors you've never considered? The most valuable stories often emerge from our most uncomfortable truths. Her voice was steady, yet inviting, a lifeline in his swirling sea of doubt. Jake frowned, turning his thoughts inward. She was right. There was an edge of excitement buried beneath the fear. He had always hidden behind layers of comfort, allowing safety to dictate his choices. But this was different. This was potential wrapped in apprehension. How could he transform fear into fuel? Maybe I need to embrace that discomfort, he whispered, half to himself. The thought flickered like a candle, fragile yet hopeful. A challenge floated to the forefront of his mind. Could he truly allow himself to be vulnerable in his work? The very admission felt revolutionary. Have you considered the stories of others? Sophia pressed gently, as if encouraging him to leap forward. Have you spoken to people who faced similar struggles? Their experiences might help frame your own. Jake's brow furrowed. In the frenzy of planning, he had been so focused on his personal perspective that he hadn't thought to incorporate the voices of others. This could be the key, not just his story, but a tapestry woven with collective experiences, discomforts, and triumphs. A flush of determination surged through him. You're right. Each word felt like stepping onto solid ground after weeks of uncertainty. I can reach out. I can interview people. Expand my idea beyond just me. Sophia nodded, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. It's in the conversations with those who've walked the path before you where true revelations often lie. It brings authenticity to your work and connects deeply with your audience. He began jotting down ideas, a flurry of purpose propelling him forward. He envisioned interviews where truths mingled like droplets of paint on canvas, each testimony infusing his work with richness and depth. Faces, stories, laughter, and pain would intertwine beneath his creative exploration. But soon, the earlier anxiety echoed again. What would happen if he shared those narratives and faced rejection? What if the world deemed his revelations unworthy? His pen hesitated above the page, his heart pounding against the walls of self-doubt. Jake, Sophia's voice was firm yet gentle. What matters is that you take the step. You control what you share. Your project can be an extension of your growth, not just a collection of perfect ideas. Begin with what feels right to you. The rest will evolve. The power of her words ignited another revelation in him. The stories he told could parallel his journey, an exploration not just of triumph, but of struggle, vulnerability, and resilience. It wasn't simply about the accolades. It was about those fleeting moments of connection, the human experience, raw and unfiltered. Jake straightened, resolve flooding his veins. He would capture this journey not just as a presentation to validate his worth, but as a reflection of who he was becoming. This was his moment, a chance to step into the narratives that seemed so distant before, a chance to create something genuinely resonant. As he dove back into his notes, scribbling contact information and potential questions, the realization dawned on him. Embracing his discomfort was crucial, not just for his work, but for his evolving identity as an artist. This was boldness, a challenge he needed to take head-on. The exhilaration coursing through him was palpable. Yet as he wrapped up for the night, exhaustion started to creep in, dragging him down. There was still so much to uncover, and time was already running thin. Suddenly, a wave of doubt washed over him again. Could he balance this new direction while meeting the heightened expectations of the judges? The pressure was mounting, heavy like an anchor weighing him down, threatening to steal away the fierce joy he'd just discovered. What if I overwhelm myself trying to do too much? He murmured. Before he could spiral further into those thoughts, Sophia spoke again, preserving him in the moment. Remember, every successful creation starts with just one step at a time. You have a vision, but it doesn't need to be perfect right now. Let the process evolve naturally. Her words lingered, almost a spell. In them, he found both comfort and the call to action. Okay, Jake replied, his voice steadier. But I need to hit the ground running. It's clear to me now that I must start reaching out, finding voices to weave into this tapestry of stories. It's time to confront what I fear and see how it transforms my work, how it changes me. Sophia smiled, pride illuminating her face. That's the spirit. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. It was a notification about a creative writing workshop happening next week. He picked it up, pulse quickening with fresh opportunity. Here was a chance to refine his craft and push himself further into uncharted territory. "Sending in my application now," he said, a newfound spark in his voice. This journey was only just beginning, and he realized he was on the brink of something transformative. As he closed his laptop, resolve settled deep within him. He was ready to challenge himself beyond the confines of his fears. But would this commitment withstand the pressures that loomed ahead? What if, in the pursuit of authenticity, he uncovered truths that altered everything he thought he knew? He breathed in deeply, feeling the weight of possibility and uncertainty alike. In this newfound embrace of his own vulnerabilities, he was ready to dive deeper into the unknown. The real question was not just about what he would find, but how those discoveries would shape him as an artist and a person. Jake stood in front of the community center, a calm determination washing over him. The storm of the past month had tested him in ways he never expected. Week after week of interviews, meetings, and feedback had pushed him outside his comfort zone, transforming anxiety into purpose. Now, standing before the building where his journey began, he felt anchored by a profound sense of accomplishment. He recalled the boy who had scrubbed toilets in this very facility, filled with shame and doubt. Today, he no longer associated himself with that young man. Instead, he embodied the vision he had fought so hard to redefine, a passionate advocate for the community, dedicated to designing a hub that inspired creativity and blossomed opportunity. He had taken the leap from merely dreaming to actively participating in the community's evolution. The community funding pitch went better than he could have anticipated. His newfound connections had ushered in local sponsors, and every story he gathered enriched his proposal. With the incorporation of individuals' voices, Jake created something meaningful, not just an architectural plan, but a narrative that sparked conversations and inspired change. The glow of the community center's freshly painted walls reminded him of the journey. Each element of his design felt like a heartbeat, a testament to resilience, and a mirror reflecting not only his growth, but the aspirations of countless others. The architectural firm, once so dismissive, had become an ally, affirming Jake's right to occupy space in a world dominated by experience and credentials. He gained validation not just from them, but from himself. The boy who had felt unworthy had become a champion for collective voices. Months transpired, but Jake continued to build. The hub opened, a vibrant space thrumming with energy. Music classes, art workshops, and community gatherings filled the calendar. The center thrived not because of Jake alone, but because of the stories of families who found comfort there. His heart swelled when watching children dance, when hearing laughter echo through the halls, when he realized this was the future he envisioned, a place of connection, growth, and love. One crisp evening, as the sun dipped low, bathing the center in golden rays, his father arrived, a proud gleam in his eyes. The respect Jake had long yearned for emanated from a simple truth. He embraced his labor as a badge of honor. They stood side by side, fathers and sons taking stock of the dream realized. "Son," his father said, voice thick with pride, "you've built something more than just a building. You've transformed lives." Jake's chest swelled with gratitude. I listened. I learned. We built this together." In that moment, he understood. The journey of transformation was not solitary. He had a stronger foundation because he built with the community, allowing their stories to ripple through his own. He proved to himself that he could conquer adversity, navigate through fear, and emerge not just a leader, but a cornerstone. Celebrating at a recent open house, surrounded by smiles and laughter, Jake knew he had made lasting impacts. Not merely data or structures, but human connections that resonated in every corner of the hub. Each smile, each thank you served as affirmation. He was no longer just the bathroom cleaner. He was a visionary leader nestled within the fabric of the community. Now Jake stood poised, ready to embrace whatever challenges the future held. He had achieved acceptance, confidence, and a sense of belonging he once believed inaccessible. With clear eyes, he looked towards the horizon, invigorated by possibility and purpose. As he turned to exit the center, his heart hammered with anticipation, ready to invite the next chapter into his life. He was committed to continuing the pursuit of dreams, ever energized by the belief that, through hard work and authenticity, he could craft a narrative worth sharing. But amid that growth lay an urgent call for his audience. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories unfolding from similar journeys. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm so we can reach more people striving for transformation. Comment your reactions and theories about Jake's incredible journey. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and understand the power of resilience and community building. Their success story could be just a dream away. Don't wait even one more second to support those striving to overcome through the stories we tell.